Hi, welcome to Five from the Archive, this time with Polina and Vanda. We recorded this live on location in central London, so there's loads of noise, loads of people singing, loads of clattering and clashing, but I am sure it's worth it. We are on the side of the Thames at about 50 metres up or something like that, but we're not looking over the edge because it's quite a long drop. And I am joined by wonderful Polina and wonderful Vanda. And can you say hello, guys?
Hello. It's absolutely lovely day out there.
I have to agree with Polina. It's a lovely day for doing this, and thank you, Mark, for having us today.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. And what we are here to do is we're going to share 5 of Polina's images, 5 of Vanda's images. So, first of all, Polina, let me throw to you. I've known you for years and I love your photography. Admire it, admire both of your photography. Can you talk to us a little bit more about your own photography, how you got into it, your approaches?
Photography, yes, it was part of my life from both actually sides, professional and as my own hobby, because I studied history of arts back in university, but I picked up history of photography as my special subject for the diploma theme. And then I worked in various galleries, museums before I came to London. And in London, I studied further history of art. It was modern art course at Christie's. So after that, I started working again straight away in galleries and picture libraries. So photography, as I said, it was part of my life, but from professional side, I've been taking pictures myself since my sort of early teen years. Started on film, absolutely loved my medium format, absolutely hated 35 millimeter because of proportions. But it's only, I would say, maybe 20, less than 20 years ago, 17 years ago, when I started treating my own photography more than just a hobby. I went freelancing after quitting my full-time job, and suddenly, I'm sure many people will relate to that, suddenly you do have a little bit more time for your
Yes.
own things. It depends on how you
Yeah,
manage
yeah.
this time. And yeah, that's how I realized actually I could be more confident with my own photography, because for me the bar was always quite high, because when you're dealing with absolute masterpieces on daily basis by contemporary photographers, by some antique photographers, old photographers, you would think, oh my God, what am I doing here? How can I call myself photographer? So I am really thinking of myself more indoors studio photographer. I do obviously enjoy taking pictures outdoors a lot, but it's a bit weird to say, but being completely control freak in my life, in my daily life, I do feel that only in the studio I'm expressing myself as a photographer to the level where I can truly say that's my work from scratch. And for today, I did pick up only those images which were photographed indoors in my studio in a very well controlled environment. But I always try to emphasize that no, guys, it's not the only thing which I love photographing. I do love photography outdoors, coastal photography, lots of sort of experimental, obviously flower photography as well. So we'll talk about it later on when
Yeah.
we talk about individual images.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And Vanda, can I ask the same of you then? What about a little bit about your photography past? Now,
My background is totally different from Polina's. Did not grow up in an artistic family. We were not photographers. I did not study art. I actually studied maths and physics because my mum always taught me you have to be practical. If there was anything creative in our family, it was music. But my uncle was a professional musician and my mum wanted me to play an instrument. So I played the flute until I was about 14 years old. But even then, my mum always said, you have to be practical, you need to have a practical job. This is not going to earn you any money, this is just your hobby. And later on, when I studied photography, it was the same. So she ingrained in me, you have to be practical. So the practical thing was maths and physics, and later on, I studied computer science, MSc in computer science in here, and I became a software developer. But the photography was a part of my life, has been a part of my life since my teens, similar to Polina. But I never had enough money to have a medium format. So it was a 35 millimeter snap happy camera. But I was so happy to have it because it was not really a very common present. I got it from my dad. And it was expensive to get film, so I actually started with black and white film, which actually was great. And I also grew up in a very industrial environment. I grew up in a coal mining and steel city was called the Steel Heart of the Republic and Black Ostra because of all the black soot and dirt from the coal mines. I believe that was actually one of the best things that happened to me. Maybe I did not believe it then, but it taught me how to see differently, how to look for beauty in unexpected places, in places where other people don't see any beauty. And the camera helped me along the way. The first thing for me is being outside. I just love being outside again, differently from Polina's approach.
Can I just add, please?
Yes.
Can I just add that Vanda is about the only person in the whole world who managed to drag me out at absolutely ungodly hour to introduce me to sunrise photography.
It does happen.
Yeah,
And did you enjoy it?
I did enjoy it.
There you go.
I did enjoy it.
So I did my job.
Yeah, you managed to
Good.
break it.
I managed it. That's great. Yeah, and it's beautiful. For me, it's the best time of the day. And for me, the most important thing is to be outside because I just love enjoying the outdoors. I love walking. And the camera is most of the time with me to capture actually the memories and the feel of being out there and being in that moment. That's where we are.
Yeah, thank you. That's why we ended up here, isn't it? Outside and in the moment. Thank you so much. Polina, let's start with your 5 if you'd like to kick us off.
Absolutely. I did pick, it was, I must say, it was quite a sort of tricky task for me to pick up top 5, simply because, as you probably, people who know my photography, they would remember, I'm not a single one-off type of image photographer. I always work in projects with body of work in mind. So what I did for this particular interview, I did pick one image representing some of my favorite portfolios. So the first one is from my white on white project. And I remember that I described this particular portfolio once as, because I'm a failed watercolor artist, that was the closest I can achieve the visual result, which I can achieve with be watercolors.
Yep.
And if this lovely helicopter is going away,
It's quite busy here for helicopters, isn't it?
yeah, lots of activity apparently in the city. Back to the image. I just think that again, it does represent me. I don't know if it's the right correct thing to say, but as a failed watercolor artist.
Okay.
So I did find the way to basically effectively paint flowers with my camera with light. This portfolio was also submitted to a Royal Horticultural Society photography portfolio competition ages ago, and I think it was my first Silver Guild medal. For me, it was very rewarding, of course, not just the medal itself, but the recognition. And I absolutely still love shooting flowers in that particular way, with strong backlit background, getting all this translucency and balancing the light, of course, because it's all about graphical element of the flowers. When you shoot in this particular style, I think your eyes are really following all the lines of the petals, of the stems, but it's all about appreciating the design of nature. So yes, you're taking flower out of its natural habitat, out of the environment where it's been growing up. But I think by this way, I'm forcing the viewer to look at the details they would not necessarily look at. If they look at the same flower, let's say in the lovely wildflowers meadow, it will be completely different way we will be looking at our subjects, flower photography.
Yeah.
So I think this, as I said, this first portfolio, white on white, probably one of my favorites still. And it's still been going strong because I'm shooting in this particular style pretty much on weekly basis. I would say definitely when selling flowers in season, I'm definitely trying to capture the beauty, the uniqueness. And I'm still yet to find few flowers which I haven't photographed in this particular manner, because it's another question which people quite often tease me about, that, oh, of course by now you would have photographed all you wanted to photograph. No, of course not. Flowers, there are models which are giving you such a wide range, and there are still quite a few I would love to photograph properly, and I still haven't tracked them down.
Okay.
Yeah.
So still quite a few on the to-do list.
Oh, absolutely. It's still going on.
And I must admit that I agree what you said about sort of showing the flowers the way that people can't see them. This is how I was introduced to Polina's work, this white on white portfolio, and plus her still lifes. And I've always admired her work, this sort of the meticulous detail, and actually to capturing the flowers in such a beautiful, sensual way, and the light, and exactly picking up the details that you will never notice without Polina showing.
And very often in life, we just walk past flowers too quickly, don't
Yes.
we?
Yeah,
And I
we
think we
do.
don't observe.
And we don't appreciate them enough. And I believe what you say, Polina, that there's still so much to take, and I look forward to seeing all the beautiful flowers that you're going to take in the future.
Thank you very much for your first one, Vanda, if that's okay. Talk us through this one.
I would say, first of all, it was very difficult for me to choose these pictures. I'm similar to Polina. I don't take single images anymore, but I used to. That's how I started. So it was very difficult for me to pick images that kind of represent me. So instead, they are images that mean something to me. The first one is actually an example of what I would have taken in the past. It was taken about 9 years ago, but even then I was already taking pictures in different collections and sets and perhaps working in some projects. But this would be something that I would take in the past. I would focus on one single image that would just bring me back to the moment when I was taking it. And that was particularly beautiful moment. It was on our trip with my boyfriend, our trip to Ireland, when we did Wild Atlantic Way. And it was, for me, this was the highlight of the whole trip. This is Lighthouse in County Donegal on the northwestern coast. And we arrived in the hotel quite late because we kept moving. It's about 1,600 miles the whole way. And we just kept moving pretty much every day. So it was a very tiring journey. And then we ended up in a hotel quite late in the evening. So I did not know what where I'm gonna go, what to expect, what to do next morning. And actually that evening, funnily enough, we were listening to some music while we were having dinner. And it was Patrick Watson's The Lighthouse. So I'm going to just read just the one part of it. Leave a light on in the wild, because I'm coming in a little blind, dreaming of a lighthouse in the woods, shining a little light to bring us back home. And it was, I think it was Serene. It just confirmed for me that I do need to go and find my way to that lighthouse and just see it for myself, because it is such an iconic thing. So I was driving through the darkness because I started really early in the morning. And I did not know. It was just driving through the little alleyways and the little bends in the road. Fortunately, they were empty. And then suddenly, from the darkness, I could see the lighthouse. Not the lighthouse, just the light leading me towards it. There was such a beautiful feeling. So then I parked up, and then I had to find my way through the darkness. And just that journey to it, and suddenly having this view in front of me was breathtaking. And I spent the whole morning, whole dawn there, just watching the light changing from the blues and purples into these pinks, and absolutely spectacular light. That's why I chose that one.
But the journey is just as important as the destination.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can see it's a beautiful image. It's a place I've never been either, actually, as well.
It's a beautiful place.
Yeah. Polina, we'll pass back on to you for your second. Thank you very much.
So the second portfolio I picked for this talk, for this presentation, is from my past, it's from my past perfect portfolio. It's a bit controversial because by the time when I started photographing flowers, when they are well past their prime, I think I've already been kind of known as, yes, flower photographer, obviously fascinated by amazing colors, by flowers in full bloom, by exotic colors. I think my kind of latest portfolio at that time was on orchids, which again, exotic flowers, amazing colors, weird shapes. So when I decided to photograph my sort of first couple of series with flowers, dead flowers, I do remember yet again quite a few friends teasing me about it. But because my great inspiration was obviously Karl Blosfeld, pretty much opened my eyes to the fact that we all know that beauty is always in the eyes of the beholder, but when it comes to practical approach, that flower could be still beautiful and amazingly elegant on the last leg of the journey, it's quite different, because
Yeah.
in order to show that, you still need to really appreciate the flower the way it is now. It's the project which I picked up for my fellowship panel for Royal Photographical Society, which was also, I think I did tell this story a couple of times, some of my talks, that I got the news that my fellowship panel was successful on the same day when it was officially announced that we are in lockdown, our first lockdown. It was absolutely horrendous time for the country, for people, but I actually spent the whole first week on the cloud nine.
Yes.
Because again, the project which was so close to my heart, it was successful and it got me my fellowship. So I still think that, yet again, it was a bit ironic, because it also got me some recognition as flower photographer within the Royal Horticultural Society, which I still find funny, because obviously being Horticultural Society and still rewarding me for photography on dead flowers.
Yes.
I do see some irony here. But I just think that similar, and yes, again, I know I probably said this before, but similar to any portrait photography, when photographer is working with amazing, beautiful, young professional model, obviously the result will be great. But same photographer would be equally fascinated, I'm sure, by working with senior age model, with all the sort of years on the eyes, all the wisdom, all the wrinkles. It still could be absolutely amazing character to work with. Flowers are exactly the same fun. I just think that even when they are half dead, not necessarily as beautiful and colorful, but there are some other characteristics which become obvious, all those skeletal graphical elements, and I absolutely love bringing them out and emphasizing them with my camera.
Thank you. And it's a wonderful comparison between the age of flowers and sort of people and the character, and we see in people who have lived a while as well. Thank you. Thank you. And again, this is something that we've seen before, but it's an example of, you can never see it twice, can you? There's always something different every time.
That's true. That's
every
true.
time.
That's so true.
Thank you. And perhaps very similar to people. Would you see different people as well? We haven't had a helicopter for a while, which is really reassuring. We've
Excellent.
got lots of boats,
got
but no.
boats.
Yeah, and a lovely guy who's playing his instrument down there as well.
I
It's a nice
wonder,
background.
I
We
wonder
like
if we can
music.
pick that up.
I did think to myself, am I going to be listening to that later on today? Okay, so Vanda, let me pass on back to you for your second.
So my second image, I would say, more represents me now. Although it was taken actually the same year as the Lighthouse, but I started to change the way, not maybe the way I see it, but the way I capture the world around me. And I prefer quieter scenes and simpler. And yes, I still like the big views and these sort of overwhelming vistas, but now I'm more focused on simpler scenes, and that's one of them. And it was another absolutely stunning morning, and funnily enough, it was one of arena seminar mornings on Bournemouth Beach. One of those sunrises before I checked Polina out. It's simple, but it's beautiful in its own way. And I came out really early in the morning again, because that's my habit, to come out in the dark to just watch the day being born. And I was up for a surprise, because I never expected that this was going to happen. So the pre-dawn colors were these pink and soft, and then the mist rolled in from the sea, and that was the result of it. I never ever regret going out in the morning.
That serene colour, I think, really typifies your style as well, doesn't it? And also getting, as you said, it's perhaps a standard beach, if you like, but getting something from nothing, not in a negative way.
No, it's not a negative way. It's just not the most spectacular beach.
Yeah.
There are no big rocks, no big views. It's very simple. But I think we should see the beauty even in that simple and in the everyday
Yeah.
and everywhere we are, really.
Thank you. Thank you. We've just got someone joining us now. We'll come back to that, I'm sure. We need a selfie with this person. That would be a great
There
idea.
is a reason he's here.
So, Polina, let me pass back to you for your third then, if that's okay.
So the third project I'm going to talk about, or rather the image from this project, is my dancing flowers. And the image I picked up, I think that was literally the first one which I was really satisfied. I really had the feeling that's exactly what I wanted. Because the element of this serendipity in your photography, despite being control freak, I do love it. I do love when it happens, but I do try to create it in my own well-controlled environment. I know it sounds a bit controversial, but Dancing Flowers for me was a mix between mastering intentional camera movement, creating those shadows or ghost-like shapes of flower when you're waving your camera, trying to create this unusual, as I said, trail of light, a trail of flower moving. Because let me tell you, despite your best effort, flowers are not going to dance for you.
No.
And yes, taking the second shot in double exposure, obviously controlling where the sort of still shot goes, how it blends in camera. That gave me back my element of control, which I was really after. But I just think that so many creative techniques these days done in software, which I have no problems with, of course. But when I have a chance, when I have an option to do something with camera rather than spending extra time with computer, I will always opt for that. And don't get me wrong, again, post-processing, it's absolutely amazing tool, Photoshop, Lightroom. But I love using it. I absolutely love creating all sorts of, as I said, more complicated images, collages, and mimicking other techniques. But only when I know for a fact that camera or other technology is not quite there yet, though I cannot do it in camera. I love spending this extra time with my camera, even when it looks from the outside that I'm completely mad because I'm waving my camera around, sometimes using my whole body to do the more smoother movement. But it's just, as I said, it's just a project which was for me extension in a way of my studio photography, well-controlled photography, but also with the element of something happening just by itself.
Yeah, bit of serendipity.
Yeah, a little bit of serendipity.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful image as well. It's a beautiful series, actually. It really is.
And I must admit, I've always loved that technique. And one day I am going to come to a workshop.
Okay, since you dragged me out of bed,
Yes, I'd say.
absolutely ungodly hour.
You could combine the sunrise and that at the same time. That would be great.
Do sunrise,
We can do
dancing
that.
flowers at sunrise.
There you go. That sounds like it appeals to both
That
of
was a
your...
deep breath.
Yes, glimpse of horror in my eyes, but never mind, we will manage, I'm sure.
Thank you very much. We've got that on recording, so we'll hold you to that. That's almost like a contract, isn't it?
Yes, I forgot about
Vanda, let me pass back to you then for your third, please, if that's okay.
Thank you very much, Mark. So my third picture this is where we're starting with the collection sets and projects that I mentioned before. So no more sort of single images, but it is a single image that I love. Perhaps one of my most favorite ones. It is from High Tatras in Slovakia, because High Tatras are the mountains on the border with Slovakia and Poland. But I have visited the Slovak part 4 times now. And the first couple of times it was with my mum, and when I was taking this picture, my mum was standing next to me. So it's always going to be very special, and it's going to always hold very special memories. And especially, it was such a beautiful day. It was very misty down at the bottom of a hill. And so you wouldn't think that you could get a view like this. So we took a funicular going up a hill, and that's what we were rewarded with. And that was beautiful light, not morning. It was
Not morning.
late afternoon, almost starting with the evening. So the light was beautiful as well. And that's what we got.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
It's
And
a
the-
beautiful view.
And I see in all of your images the fact that you can tell how you're feeling, I think, in your images as well. I think it's conveyed really well.
Thank you.
I really do.
You do capture memories, but not just memories of location, that's where we've been, but you do capture memories of what it actually meant, what it felt like. So I think photography, outdoor
Yeah.
photographers, good ones, they definitely managed to do specifically that,
Yes.
capturing the mood
Yeah.
rather than just purely record shot with location.
Yeah, I think, thank you, Polina, right? I think I do try, and I'm doing my best to capture my emotions and my feelings, how I feel about the location or the place or the moments that I am in. And with my collections and projects, I am trying to capture the sense of place, the essence of it, whether successfully or not. That's not really up to me to say. But
Oh, we will say, don't worry.
Yeah, we definitely think it is.
but yeah, that's what I am striving for.
Yeah.
Not just a pure record of where I've been, but how I feel about it and what it means to me.
Thank you. Thank you. And no more birds, no helicopters. On that one, at least. It's getting a bit windy, but we'll see how we go. If we've got lots of wind, I'll try my best to edit it out. Not personal wind, obviously. Sorry, I realise how that sounded. Do apologise. Polina, if I can pass back to you for number 4 then, please.
Okay, so now we're moving on into my second favorite genre in photography. It's still obviously studio photography, but rather than flowers, we're talking now about my still life photography. I do have a number of portfolios on more traditional still life. Some of them a bit more impressionistic. Others you can clearly see they've been inspired by my love, by my fascination with old masters. But at some point when I started thinking about how I can implement into my still life photography my other fascination, my other love for more surrealistic still life, that's what become another project. And because I'm absolutely hopeless with titles, obviously English is not my mother tongue, Alex, my better half, much better half, he said that it's very simple, it's unstill life. And this unstill life project is also still going on. In fact, if everything goes the way we planned, I will be presenting another project at Camversation as well on my new unstill life
fantastic.
portfolio. But this one was very close to my heart because, again, it was inspired by René Magritte, probably more than anybody else. And I was absolutely desperate to keep exactly the same, if you will, formula of good still life. So well-balanced composition, obviously color scheme, light. But I just wanted to introduce something a bit more quirky, a bit more whimsical, without still spending extra sort of hours in post-processing. Obviously, Photoshop was used to eliminate elements which were holding all these objects up in the air. And as I said, I do enjoy that when people look at these images of this whole portfolio, and they're trying to figure out not necessarily how it's done, what's holding those objects, but rather what kind of perspective, what kind of, how do these objects, how do they work together? It's interesting when I did exhibit some of these prints as part of the Serene exhibition in the past, and some of my absolutely favorite sort of snapshots with my mobile phone were of people standing in front of my prints and slightly
Pulling their face.
pulling the faces or trying to turn the head and lean towards one side or the other, just to see how it feels, how it works out for them. So yes, as I said, this was a project which I thoroughly enjoyed and I'm still shooting for it.
I can see why, and I can see why people would turn their heads at that, because when you look at it, it just invites questions, doesn't it? It just asks questions, and I love it. Thank you so much.
I really admire that, and I really admire your patience and the sort of the sense for detail and the control you have over setting up all that image. The result is, as you said, whimsical. Which whimsical is it doesn't really come with
Controlled, no.
Does it?
No.
But it does. In Polina's case, it does.
Yeah.
It's a magical combination.
It's the outlet. I wonder if it's after all the control, you need the outlet. You need that as well. Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll look back at Vanda's number 4. Thank you. And this is a picture that I recognise. So thanks very much. I'm interested in you talking about this one as well.
Sorry, I keep using it.
No,
but
please don't apologise.
It is one of my favourite images, and again, one of my favourite moments, not just in photography really, but in my life. And this time, it was a trip with my better half, much better half, Martin, that we hired a little cruiser on the River Thames and spent a week cruising from Oxford down. We got down to Marlow and then back up to Oxford. It was such a wonderful trip. I must admit that to start with, I had to get used to being on the boat and doing all the things and the locks. It was actually quite hard work, but once I got used to it, I really enjoyed it. And especially because we were rewarded with mornings like this. It became also a part of my project about the Thames. I think I have talked about it in a conversation. It's called Notes from the Thames.
Yeah.
And that was one of those really magical mornings when you just come out of the boat and that's what you present it with. How can you not like it?
Absolutely beautiful. And I don't usually speak about editing very much, but did you do much editing on this, or was it because it looks so beautiful?
It was like that. I do edit images because I shoot as well.
Yeah.
But that was what
That's
I saw.
what you say, yeah. Absolutely stunning.
It's very much a fairy tale
It is.
scenery, which was you would expect to see this kind of stop film camera if you just pause some kind of fantasy movie.
It really is. It
And
really
I
is.
was only just walking along the path and just turned my head. And I was amazed. It stopped me in my tracks.
And I think that's the power of the image, though, isn't it? Because it stops you to look in the same way that Polina's did stop you to think
Yes.
for different reasons. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I do hope we are catching this guy down there, by the way, because I'm really enjoying his music as well. And our last one.
I don't
Polina.
know how you organize it, Mark, but
I
yes.
I did have to sub him.
It's a perfect background.
It's a perfect.
It is. I'm probably breaking the law by recording him, but there we go.
Okay, so I hope, Mark, you will incorporate later
Of
images
course.
which we're going to take, like snapshots of where we're sitting, so people would understand why we keep giggling at this point. So the next project I picked up for this talk is from my doll series, and it's probably for some people would be quite unexpected, but for me it was absolutely a logical extension of my still life photography, because I've been collecting art dolls for a number of years, and just for the record, no, they're not Barbies.
Nope.
But it's just something which at some point during COVID I realized that I'm passionate about them, and I keep in touch with many artists, doll makers, many craftsmen, because art doll collectors, it's the whole different world. So for me, playing with these objects, and essentially they are objects, you need to apply your usual sort of still life skills when you set up the scenery, when you work out what you want to photograph, what kind of scenery you want to create. But what people don't realize, of course, is that it's still effectively all done from scratch. Yes, I do not, let's say, make doll furniture myself. I cannot sew even with a gun to my head. I cannot sew the button. But I do commission amazing craftsmen, amazingly skilled seamstresses. And I spent quite a lot of time putting this final result, final image together. I do create sketches quite often because I think specifically with still life, I do need this sort of visual reference for myself in my head, down to sometimes tiny little detail where all these bits going, so that the scenery will be believable. But I'm not aiming at fooling anyone's eyes into thinking that all these sort of sceneries, they are like real people. That's not my purpose at all. I just love to create the scenery and take photographs where the fact that they are dolls will be almost negligible to people, that this what's called suspension of disbelief will be very much the aim of my final result. Yes, people can create amazing pictures if they're shooting Barbie dolls, but I'm just after this extreme realism in those amazing pieces of art, because that's what they are, they're collectible dolls. But at the same time, it's all about, I suppose, yet again, being failed painter. Because, I love to be inspired by old masters, by more impressionistic approach when I photograph my dolls, very much like in my still life or in my flower portraiture photography. It's just with different objects.
I'm quite pleased that you're a failed painter, because I find your photography outstanding.
And you go from flowers, still life, to taking images of dolls, but they are, like you said, they are pieces of art, and there is so much skill in taking these images, because it's the posing, it's the light, it's the design, because you do all the design as well.
Yes,
So all these ideas in your head, and then you have to commission someone to make them real. So the skill is amazing. Like, all the skills that come together to take these photos.
I must say, quite often with my doll photography, I do feel like I only press the button. But at the same time, it's the result of the work of absolutely amazing other people who do make the fact that I can press the button and get this picture, they do make it possible.
Yeah, but you don't just press the button.
No, it's a symbiotic circle, isn't it? You create
It
the
is.
ideas.
It is. It
Yeah, you
absolutely
record
is.
it at the end, but there's a big run up to that,
Yeah.
isn't there?
And I do
Yeah.
enjoy the process.
You'd be a great portrait photographer because you really
Do
have
not
got
tempt
the
me.
feel
Yeah, there we go.
to posting.
Yes, but people, they are moving.
Yeah, I know. You can't just grab their hands and twist them, can you? Yeah.
As well, don't they?
Yeah, they need to check the Instagram and every 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Less of a problem. Thank you so much. Now, shall we take a picture, quick snap now?
Yeah,
Or should we do
let's
it?
do another.
I feel like we
Absolutely.
should do. A quick
So we
snap.
do have photographer in our midst. You can see that. Can I just make sure that the camera is also there?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
This is great. If you did that with a real model, Polina, you can't just drag their heads
Can you
around.
imagine? Yes. Can you imagine me doing that with real models?
Yeah. This could be the top image, if you like, the image, the session
that's-
shot. That would be great. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you.
But don't think I'm not going to do the same with you.
Oh, of course. Am I allowed to pose with him as well?
Absolutely going to.
Absolutely. I don't have to turn around. Okay. Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much. And Vanda, your final image from the 5, if we can ask you to share that, please.
Thank you very much, Mark. So that's another image from another project of mine that focuses on my local area, which started with Bushy Park because this is closest. And then we've got Richmond Park, which is a little bit further, but it's still very close. And then I expanded it to the whole Surrey because that's where we go walking with my better half. It's an area of outstanding natural.
Yes.
But this one is from Bushy Park. And it was another magical morning. I did not expect any of this. I went there to photograph the full moon. And when I arrived and walked in, I was amazed by frost and mist and the light that the full moon was giving out, which was this sort of orange glow, which was totally unusual for me. And so I headed to one of the trees that I always wanted to photograph because I photographed it in so many ways before, but I was never happy with it. And when I got there, suddenly I got
It was
that.
perfect.
And that was perfect. That was such a perfect view.
You
So that's the memory of that morning.
You say that, but you've got to be there to get the perfect view, haven't you? That's the thing.
And that's the thing about shooting locally, because you can go back there again and again until the conditions are right and until you really can capture it the way you imagined or the way you want.
I wonder if because things are local to us, I think we're all guilty of not going there much because it's too local. I wonder.
Yeah, and I was guilty of it as well, especially when I was growing up, because you get used to the place where you live and you think there's nothing to see because you know it all. But you don't, because you have to just look with different eyes,
Yeah.
and that helps.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you find beauty and magic where you are, and it makes you appreciate where you are.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And that's our 5 from you both. So I'm going to give you a round of applause. Woo.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Does this chap have a name, by the way?
Well, those people with keen observing eye would probably recognize the character he was based on. I give you one clue: Outlander.
I did recognise the jacket, the Honda
No.
racing jacket. I did recognise
no,
that.
Definitely not. But I hope you appreciate his camera.
Yeah,
It's like mine. It's
Yeah.
very similar to mine. Yeah.
absolutely. Well, we brought him.
Fuji Film X-T5.
Thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate you taking the time for this. It really means a lot to me. Thank you. And I hope the wind doesn't ruin it, or hasn't ruined it.
It really means a lot to me, and I believe to Polina as well that we could do that. So thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you.
It
Thank you.
was a pleasure.
It
And
always
it's
is a pleasure.
great to see you both.
Yeah,
in
likewise.
person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why I emailed you both. I thought, let's just do it. Let's just do
Yes.
it. I mean, it's fine online, but it'd be so much better in real life. So thank you very much.
And what a lovely day today.
Thank you for supporting this wonderful 5 from the archive with Polina and Vanda. There's lots more to come. Please do subscribe and click that notify button as well.